Sangeeta. Thank you for doing this interview with India Global Business. Before we start the interview, I have to say a huge congratulations for your upcoming book. CSR is not public relations. It sounds really exciting, and we're looking forward to the launch of the book. And I was one of the few lucky people to get an advance copy, so thank you for that. And I've got a lot of questions in mind today to go through, which you discuss in your book. So shall we get started?
Yes, let's get started. I'm very excited to be talking to you as well. I love what you're doing. I love the content you produce. So it just seems the right synergy for me and the book.
Great, thanks, Sangeeta. So let's start with the basics, because everyone seems to think being the operative word, that they know what CSR is, just corporate social responsibility. I think CSR is often looked upon by companies, at least, as almost like a compulsion, something that they have to do because either countries like India have made it compulsory, or as a PR exercise. And as someone who's been in the PR business for such a long time, and as the author of this new book, what do you think about CSR? Like CSR for CSR's sake? Why do we need CSR just as CSR and not a PR exercise?
Well, that's a huge question. And just to probably break it down, I think this pandemic has shown us right now in real time how we can't carry on doing what we have been doing as consumers and as business. Something needs to change. And since this global pandemic of COVID-19, there have been lots of research, lots of reports looking at consumers, looking at businesses. And now consumers want businesses, wherever they might be in the world, to do better. And businesses are recognizing they have to do better. They have to do better within their community that they're operating, within their supply chains, with their employees, and also giving better choices to consumers. So sort of going back to, how you started the question with responsibility is a sort of like a must do. It is kind of, because we all have to be responsible. We have to, there's no other way. The planet has so much of its resources. It's not infinite with all the resources that it has, and they are slowly dwindling. And we have to look after the planet better. So that is a responsibility. And also, when you are working with corporate social responsibility at the heart of your brand, when you've integrated it into your business strategy, everything else is effortless. Your PR is seamless. You don't have to try hard because the PR is authentic. It's engaged already. There's trust. There's all those elements that we hear about automatically within the brand and the business strategy. When we put PR first, that's when it's spin. That's when it's just, flaky. And brands do not endure, and consumers are savvy. They sniff through anything that's not real. We've seen it so many times. So yeah, there is a responsibility. We all have a responsibility. And I think the pandemic has woken us up to that action.
There was a very interesting point that you made, which really struck me when you said that PR, it makes PR more seamless and transparent. And when you put PR first, then that's where the spin comes in. So I'm very intrigued in asking you this, because you have so many years of PR experience yourself, about how PR can bring accountability to companies.
I'd like to first sort of start by saying, I've worked with so many different brands and organizations and businesses over the years, and I've witnessed so many businesses and companies join charities or get on board with an organization to promote or be part of that mission, but really they're just paying lip service to it because they want the publicity out of it. And they start beating the charities for more PR because that's the only mission and drive. And when you do it that way, you find that those brands don't endure. So how does PR make us more accountable? Well, when you're not acting with integrity with your brand, when you don't put CSR at the heart of it, then that's when you start to have a PR crisis. And that's when you're put under the spotlight. And it's these days, it's, you know, the spotlight is on you because of social media, because of the internet. You can't hide. And we've seen those brands when they are not acting with integrity, such as we saw in the last lockdown. We had boohoo.com, where they were not treating their workers well. They were not socially distancing in the manufacturing. They weren't being paid the minimum wage. There were so many things, and boohoo.com is also what we call one of those nasties of fast fashion, and we're not sustainable enough. And also, corporate social responsibility is not just about sustainability in the planet. It's also about things such as diversity and inclusion. And we've seen a lot of those conversations come to the forefront. So there are too the elements within CSR. And when companies are not doing it right, they get called out. And we saw recently, we had the Louis Vuitton, I don't know whether you caught it on social media, where Louis Vuitton was called in to work with Jamaica to produce a sweater representing the colours of the flag. And they got the colours wrong. And again, if you don't have the right people in the room, you're going to make bad marketing, PR decisions. So I would say it's CSR leading PR. PR doesn't lead the CSR, because that's when you have the inauthentic publicity, you have the spin. And when you do it that way, PR does show up. It shows you up. And then you're having to crisis management everything about your organization.
Sangeeta, in your book, I know you've dedicated an entire chapter towards CSR in India, and we're seeing this very interesting trend in India, obviously, where one of the things, I think India is probably one of the few countries, if not the only one, which has got CSR almost mandatory for every company to contribute to. But apart from that, we're seeing now a very interesting trend, particularly with the pandemic, where a new breed of entrepreneurs are coming in and just simply devoting their business models around solving social or economic problems. So what is your take on these social entrepreneurs, as they're calling themselves? Do you think they provide the sort of tipping point for business to move more towards accountability and making better choices?
Well, I think it's a very exciting time for India. I mean, these social entrepreneurs tend to be from a younger generation, and stats from 2018 show that India has one of the youngest populations in the world. And these entrepreneurs, they haven't just come about because of the pandemic. There might be more of them coming through right now to create change at local level, but they've been here for a long time. They've been here doing amazing work within their villages, their local communities. And yes, I think they're driving change in India, and they're taking advantage of the internet. They're taking advantage of the digital revolution that's going on, but at the same time, they want to safeguard, the artisans, some of the amazing aspects that India has with its culture, with its heritage, and not give everything away to globalization. So I think these social entrepreneurs are creating a tipping point for India. And I think their thinking isn't anything different. India's been doing this for a long time, which is why I have this chapter in the book. There is this aspect that we here in the West believe we should be teaching the East. But really, a lot of brands in India have been doing corporate social responsibility or social entrepreneurship for over 100 years. This isn't a new thing. And, in India, we've always had upcycling. The Raddiwala comes, collects. Everything has a purpose in India. And and that's probably been some of the downside of the internet, because and globalization, because we've forgotten those values and gone sort of like another way. But these social entrepreneurs are bringing it back, and some exciting projects going on.
That's a really, when you were talking about India always having had these sustainable practices, you're so right. I think what India lacked for all these years is a good PR. Because really, I do think India lacks good PR, because there are so many things, like you mentioned, the Raddiwalas, there are just, I want to go back to your book, and just sort of ask, what was the inspiration for writing this book then? Was it the pandemic, or is it something that you feel that businesses now definitely need to look at, even before the pandemic came into place? It'd be really lovely to know about that.
It's a little bit of all that, but also it's a book that I've wanted to write, and I wanted to write a business book that wasn't the usual kind of business book. I wanted it to be easy for people to understand, and I also wanted to collect wisdom from thought leaders around the world. And I think we learn a lot through the power of storytelling. So I wanted to find some of the unsung heroes that are doing great things within corporate social responsibility, that are easy to do, that will inspire us, and inspire not just businesses, but organizations within communities, consumers to think differently. So I went out and found different voices to be part of the book, and interviewed those global thought leaders. So as you say, I've got a chapter in India. So I have Rushan Kumar, who set up the India CSR Network, which is one of the first sustainable news platforms in India, before the government brought in the 2014 CSR law. I have an interview with David Katz, who's the CEO of Plastic Bank, and one of the world's greatest change makers right now, with what he's doing on plastic pollution. So there's a interview. There's something for everyone within the book. Young entrepreneurs. So we talked a little bit about social entrepreneurs. I have a wonderful young entrepreneur in the book, who is a fashion, she has her own fashion brand, but everything she does is with thought and purpose, from creating her own dyes, of how she produces, what she produces. So I wanted to show businesses that corporate social responsibility is easy. It wins business. It's great for your PR, because you don't have to work at it. When people know that you're automatically doing these things, that's when the PR just happens, because people will refer, will talk about you on their social media. And also, I just wanted to make a difference myself, and I knew the way I could do that was through writing a book.
You mentioned about integrity and having these sort of brand values, which are so crucial to CSR. I was wondering, during your research for your book, you must have definitely come across certain myths that haunt this concept of CSR. So what are some of the most misplaced ideas that you found that are often associated with CSR that kind of keep companies from being more accountable?
So many, that to work with the charities, I've said, will automatically raise your brand and your profile by not being empathetic to what's happening in the world, to not respecting the planet and the resources. And that means not really looking at their supply chains, and ensuring that that these supply chains are operating with values themselves. So many things. And also, what's key is that diversity and inclusion is very much part of corporate social responsibility. We can't ignore voices from other groups anymore, and brands need to be talking to everyone and not excluding people. And we see that time and time again, those mistakes being made. And I don't think there is now room for those kinds of mistakes anymore. I mean, those excuses, you can't make those excuses anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Whenever I speak to companies during any kind of event, one of the most common answer I've usually had companies come up with is it's too expensive to move into more sustainable practices, or it's difficult, it's work in progress, which is always, as we know, code for slow going. And like you said, right now with everything that the world is going through, we can't make those excuses anymore. So are there any particular insights that you have on how businesses can find that balance and overcome these sort of hurdles in thinking more than actually in practice, and put these roll these practices out?
Yeah, I mean, CSR is not short term. There's no shortcuts to it either. It's it's about putting things in place. It's about long term gains. Um, Also, when you have CSR at the heart of your organization, your employees automatically know what their purpose is, what their role is, what's the end product that they're working towards. You you have better talent. People stay longer. They're not thinking of moving on. They want to be part of something that's making change. So the balance, there isn't really a balance. It's you have to you've got to step into it. You can't put one foot in and one foot out. You've got to step in with both feet and be committed. But while it might take time, the rewards are means that you're building a strong brand. You're building a brand it's there to last. You're also building trust with your consumer or with your clients, with your partners. That's the other thing about CSR. When you have it built into your brand, you automatically, when you're creating partnerships, you create the right kind of partnerships for yourself. Because you also see lots of brands who just get into bed with partners or with ambassadors or celebrities, and they're not aligned with their values. And that, again, is when things go wrong. So there isn't a balance. It's about just getting on and doing it, rolling up your sleeves and getting on with it.
Thanks, Sangeeta. It's been such a wonderful discussion, and it's been wonderful to have this chat with you. You've certainly given me a lot of things to think about. All the best for your book.
Thank you.
I'll be keeping an eye out for it.